I let out a strange, trembling laugh, burying my head on my desk as excitement surged through me. My sudden outburst drew strange looks from everyone in the classroom. My teacher, Li Yuan, grew dark-faced on the podium, but my continued chuckles only drove him to throw a piece of chalk straight at us. It struck my deskmate, Zhang Dali, with perfect precision. Reluctantly following orders to wake me, Dali gave me a hard shove, but I just kept swaying and laughing. Seeing our teacher on the verge of exploding, Dali softly whispered that school was out. The instinct hit instantly. I bolted upright, kicking my stool away in my haste. The entire class erupted into laughter. Still groggy and completely bewildered by their noise, I rubbed my sleepy eyes, only to find Li Yuan's coal-black face filling my vision. I jolted violently, managing an awkward greeting before another uncontrollable chuckle slipped out as I recalled my dream. Li Yuan forced down his rage and demanded to know why I was sleeping. I quietly held back my initial thought that sleeping in math class was perfectly reasonable. Instead of exploding, he walked to the blackboard, pointing at a question. He declared that if I got the answer wrong, I was out. I rubbed my eyes and stared at the board, completely stunned. The question asked for the incantation used by beast tamers to sign contracts with spirits in the early stages of the revival era. 3 existential questions raced through my mind. Who was I? Where was I? And what on earth was this question doing in a math class? Wasn't our teacher supposed to be teaching algebra? As Li Yuan crushed the chalk in his hand, his anger reaching a boiling point, I knew I had to guess. I tentatively blurted out a trigonometry rule about quadrant signs. Li Yuan slammed his hand on the lectern, roaring in frustration. I pleaded for another chance, claiming multiple-choice questions were my true forte. Before he could yell again, a voice suddenly echoed in my mind, announcing that the beast-taming selection system was activated. 3 options floated before me, offering rewards ranging from a small amount of beast-taming power to a low-grade flame potion to extra spirit obedience. Recognizing this as classic protagonist treatment, I quickly analyzed my choices. Though the option seemed modest, the potion felt like the best pick. Selecting the second choice, I stood up with my hands behind my back, looking like a leader on inspection. I glanced around the silent room, spread my hands, and declared with total seriousness that I had wanted to get along as a top student, but since that earned me only alienation, I was coming clean about being a terrible student who knew nothing. A deathly, frozen silence gripped the classroom, my classmates staring at me in absolute awe. Li Yuan's expression turned eerily calm as he ordered me to his office. As he walked out, I straightened my shirt while the system voice announced my reward. A low-grade flame elixir, along with extra spirit obedience for my bravery, both stored safely in my system space. I stepped out into the hallway like a warrior heading off to battle, leaving behind a classroom full of bewildered students, whispering about my sudden, unbelievable courage. My classmates all wore mournful expressions, ready with a stretcher to carry me back from the teacher's office. Facing Black Whirlwind like that seemed like madness, though they knew I was prone to strange behavior. Inside, Li Wen sat down and lit a cigarette, asking what was going on with me. When I claimed to have mental problems, he pointed out that I had used that exact excuse 23 times already. He narrowed his eyes and asked if I genuinely did not know the answer to such a basic question. I admitted that I truly had no idea, nor did I even know what a spirit master was. I had simply fallen asleep in class and the entire world had changed around me. Surprisingly, Li Yuan did not make things difficult. Recognizing that my mind was troubled and knowing my father, he handed me a leave slip, telling me to go home and rest for the weekend. Stepping out onto the empty campus while classes were in session, I whistled to myself, deciding to make the best of this strange situation, especially since I had awakened a system. When a teacher spotted me wandering around and asked why I was out of class, I proudly declared that I was sick, leaving him whispering that I must be quite ill indeed. Riding a shared bicycle, I hurried home. My mother greeted me with deep concern, clearly having received a call from Li Yuan beforehand. I reassured her that I was just a little dazed, but when I asked if it was still 2021, she looked at me like I was talking nonsense, stating it was the year 980 of the resurrection era. Realizing I had not fully recovered my bearings, I went straight to my room to use the computer. I made myself a hot drink and spent hours browsing the news as my worldview repeatedly crumbled and rebuilt itself. Interdimensional portals had appeared randomly across cities, filled with dangerous, ferocious beasts. To combat this threat, humans underwent awakening ceremonies at 15, unlocking beast-taming talents to sign contracts with otherworldly spirits. Beast-tamers commanded these spirits in battle, guarded the dimensional gates, and held immense social status. When my mother called me out for dinner, she touched my forehead in concern at my unsteady state. Just then, my father returned from work and threw a large bag of random promotional pharmacy medicines onto the sofa as a gift for my illness. I stared at the useless pile, then asked my parents if they were beast tamers. My father proudly stated that he worked for a beast taming unit and produced an exquisite red gift box containing a low-grade flame potion. He explained that a single bottle could permanently enhance a spirit's fire attributes and was worth several $1,000s, which he planned to sell. Looking down at the red coffee I had just finished gulping down, I realized with a shock that I had used the system's expensive reward potion to brew my drink earlier because there was no hot water. When I asked what would happen if a human drank it, my father scoffed that only a crazy person would do such a thing. Deciding not to worry since I only felt a pleasant warmth, I asked my father about his contracted spirit. He proudly pointed to the living room fish tank, where a small red fish we had kept for years was swimming back and forth. I examined the little red fish in the living room tank, wondering if it was a super ferocious beast that only revealed its true form in times of crisis. My father quickly shattered that fantasy, pointing out that as a level 1 beast tamer, his spirit was basically a long-lived pet. The ranking system ran from levels 1 through 9, scaling up through iron, silver, gold, and the legendary king tier. A level 1 tamer was practically an ordinary person. When he reminded me that I was sitting at level 0, I was surprised to realize that I was considered a tamer too. My mother brought out a bowl of steaming pork rib soup and tossed me a soft slime doll, explaining it was the spirit I had contracted at age 15. Feeling like I was holding a large chunk of jelly, I poked the creature as a virtual status panel floated into my view. It belonged to my golden slime, a special category creature with a lazy, kind personality and an F potential rating. Its sole talent was a sleepiness defense boost, and its only skill was a reckless charge that warned against hitting enemies over 10 pounds. The creature stirred, opening its gentle eyes and rubbing affectionately against my hands. Though called a golden slime, its dull yellow color made it look suspiciously like a moving pile of dung. Curious about my placement in school, I asked why I was in a regular class instead of the specialized beast taming program. My father pointed out that my slime's bottom-tier potential rating was the obvious reason. When I expressed a firm desire to switch to the beast taming class, 2 system options suddenly materialized before me. The first offered moderate power if I insisted on switching, while the second offered 10 million in cash if I gave up my tamer talent to stay on an ordinary path. The sheer amount of cash almost made my resolve crumble. Testing the waters, I asked my father what he would choose between 10 million cash or becoming a powerful tamer. He scoffed, calling such choices pure nonsense. Taking that as my cue, I declared my absolute commitment to becoming a beast tamer, formally rejecting the cash option. My sudden seriousness caught my parents off guard, considering I was already in the 2nd semester of my junior year. Switching tracks so late was practically academic suicide. Yet after a brief laugh, my father unexpectedly agreed to support my decision. Surprised by how easily they relented, I playfully asked if we were secretly wealthy, only for my father to shut down my daydreaming and tell me to finish my soup. He promised to speak with the school the following week, leaving me to spend the rest of the weekend locked in my room studying beast-taming lore. On Monday morning, my father and I stood in the office of my homeroom teacher, Li Yuan. The burly instructor frowned heavily at the request to transfer me to the beast-taming class so late in my junior year, warning my father that the move could ruin my future. My father argued that I met all basic requirements, relying on their old friendship to push the matter. Li Yuan handed him a cigarette and shook his head, explaining that my average talent would only allow me to reach level 2 in a single year, far short of the requirements for a top beast-taming university. As the 2 men debated my future, I finally interjected to speak up for myself. I interrupted their conversation to reveal that my current beast-taming level had already reached level 1. As both men looked over in surprise, I summoned my golden slime directly into my hands from my exclusive taming space. Previously, I had kept it at home purely as a pet, but now they could clearly sense its increased power as a level 1 contracted spirit. The system's previous reward had quietly bumped my level up, surprising my father, who realized I was serious. Seeing this progress, Li Wen reluctantly agreed to talk to the school administration about my transfer. As we left the office, my former teacher reached for a cigarette, only to realize my father had pocketed his lighter, leaving him grumbling behind us. When I returned to my old classroom, my classmates swarmed around me, openly disappointed to find me completely intact rather than beaten to a pulp. My deskmate Zhang Dali lamented the lost opportunity for a memorial feast, to which I laughed and traded light banter. When they asked if Black Whirlwind had given me a hard time, I jokingly claimed he had begged me to join the beast taming class while I resisted, prompting a collective sneer as everyone returned to their seats. Shortly after the bell rang, a refined teacher named Fang Ke entered the room instead of Li Yuan, calling me out into the hallway. My departure sparked excited whispers among the students, glad to see the class menace move on. Outside, Fang Ke turned out to be the homeroom teacher for Beast Taming Class 5, who had seen me wandering campus the previous Saturday. He instructed me to pack my books and report to his class that afternoon. When I boldly asked why I was not being placed in the prestigious Class 1, He shut down my daydreaming immediately, explaining that Class 1 was reserved for elite students with high-rank spirits, whereas the 5 beast-taming classes were strictly divided by overall performance. Accepting my placement, I knew my system options would quickly elevate my standing regardless of where I started. That afternoon, I waited outside Class 5 until Fang K introduced me to the 24 students inside. Walking in with my hands behind my back like an inspecting official, I launched into an absurd self-introduction, boasting about my good looks, flawless health, academic mastery, and gentleman's charm, even inviting them to call me uncle. A dead silence fell over the room as Fang K wiped sweat from his brow, cutting me off mid-speech and directing me to an empty seat in the back row. Though disappointed that I could not finish my lengthy self-praise speech, I carried my books to the back and offered friendly nods to my new classmates. Settling in, Fang Ke instructed us to pull out our study materials for a monthly test, leaving me muttering at the surprisingly intimidating name of the exam prep book. The test was a comprehensive exam divided into 4 parts: history, geography, biology, and materials. Unlike what I used to know, these subjects all revolved entirely around beast taming. History focused on 900 years of spiritual revival, detailing major wars, reforms, and world shifts. Geography covered the global locations of extra-dimensional portals and their varying climates. Biology examined the habits and combat traits of alien beasts, while materials centered on identifying rare, valuable resources from other realms. Although high school covered a vast range of topics, the knowledge remained mostly foundational, saving advanced studies for university. By the time the final bell rang that afternoon, I had been writing furiously, managed to finish all the multiple-choice questions, and sighed, knowing my score would barely reach double digits. Fangke collected our papers and dismissed us for the day. Unlike regular students, beast tamers had no evening self-study sessions, leaving us time to cultivate our beast-taming power by absorbing spiritual energy. 980 years ago, spiritual energy first emerged, sparking the era of beast tamers. Improving required steady, persistent cultivation regardless of background, though wealthy families naturally accelerated their progress using expensive medicinal liquids and resource-rich environments. As I prepared to leave, a boy in a black t-shirt blocked my path, introducing himself as Wang Meng. Joined by several classmates who rolled up their sleeves, he created a tense, intimidating atmosphere. Anticipating school bullying, I braced myself to scream and bolt, but Wang Meng merely warned me not to disrupt the class's studies in beast taming Class 5. Astonished by their intense academic commitment, I quickly agreed. Wang Meng then revealed he was the class monitor, offering to protect me if students from other classes picked on me, adopting a righteous pose that clearly exhausted him. Relieved that a potential brawl was just an overly intense lecture from a top student, I set off for home. Whether from poor or wealthy backgrounds, all students spent their evenings cultivating, as beast-taming ability served as the primary metric for college entrance examinations. Families spent tens of thousands of yuan annually on tuition and fees, driving ordinary students to work hard to stand out, while wealthy students strived to advance their family legacies. Riding my shared bicycle home, I ate a quick dinner and sat in my bedroom, attempting to clear my mind and sense the surrounding spiritual energy. After 2 full hours of chanting and trying to focus, I completely gave up, realizing that self-cultivation was far too difficult and required immense patience. Recognizing my lack of natural talent for cultivation, I decided to rely entirely on the system. Simple choices had already made me a level 1 beast tamer, saving me 6 months of hard labor. Craving another shortcut, I announced to my bewildered mother that I was heading out to answer a multiple-choice question. I rode into the brightly lit city center of Nanjiang, heading toward the local beast-taming department store to browse basic potions. Inspecting displays of low-grade frost, flame, and power potions priced at 5,000 yuan each, a polite salesperson approached me. Before I could speak, 3 system options suddenly materialized in my vision. Option 1 offered a minor weight boost for my slime if I admitted I was broke. Option 2 offered 2 power potions if I dramatically declared I wanted everything, though it carried some risk. And Option 3 offered a defense boost for my slime if I asked how to learn medicine making. Passing on Option 1 and avoiding the risk of Option 2, I settled on the third choice. I asked with a solemn expression if I could study pharmaceutical manufacturing, hoping to learn medicine making since Tamer potions were ridiculously expensive. Even a basic low-grade potion effective only up to level 3 cost 5,000 yuan, making higher-tier remedies worth a small fortune. Seeing this as a path paved with gold, I was thoroughly disappointed when the salesperson rolled her eyes and walked away. Unfazed by the snub, I filed a quick complaint, left the store satisfied with my slime's newly gained defense, and decided to research the industry at home. Riding my bicycle back through the night, I heard a woman crying for help from a dark alleyway. Peer into the shadows under the dim streetlights, I spotted 2 men holding fruit knives and attempting a robbery. 3 options suddenly materialized before me: leaving for a minor power reward, fighting both thugs at the risk of my life, or intervening to win a giant growth skill book. Deciding on the third choice, I pointed dramatically into the alley, shouting at the top of my lungs that I, Zhang Dali, would not let their crimes go unpunished under the cover of darkness. The moment the thugs froze in confusion, I slammed my feet onto the pedals, speeding away like I was riding on wheels of fire while bellowing a heroic song into the night. My loud distraction gave the victim enough time to push past the bewildered robbers, escape, and call the police. Safe back at home, I celebrated my clever loophole exploit as the golden skill book materialized in my hand. I immediately used it, teaching my golden slime the giant growth skill, which doubled its size at the cost of a slight speed penalty. Combining this with its charge meant it could now knock back enemies up to 20 pounds, though its overall combat power remained laughably weak. The next morning, I arrived at school with dark circles under my eyes after spending half the night researching alchemy online. I had learned that becoming an alchemist required a prestigious university degree, explaining the salesperson's previous contempt. As I prepared to sleep at my desk, my new homeroom teacher, Fang Ke, summoned me to his office. He slammed my exam paper onto the desk with an expression far more terrifying than black whirlwinds. Attempting to sound confident, I picked up the paper and apologized for my low score of 91, only to realize I was holding it upside down and had actually scored 16 points. Fang Ke angrily demanded to know if I had spent my entire high school career playing in the mud, as I had placed dead last by a massive margin. Right then, 3 new options surfaced in my vision: admitting my mistake for a brief cultivation boost, telling him there was no mud at school to master strength potion crafting, or requesting a retake for power. Knowing I lacked cultivation talent, I chose the second option and solemnly informed my teacher that there was no mud at school. Stunned by my absurd response, an infuriated Fang Ke ordered me to copy the test paper 10 times. Leaving the office with a light step, I grinned, thrilled to have unlocked basic potion studies and strength potion crafting. As I walked down the hall lost in thoughts of future wealth, a staggering figure suddenly crashed right into me. Class monitor. Wang Meng passed me in the hallway, his face bruised and swollen from a recent beating. Inflamed with righteous indignation on behalf of my classmate, I instantly summoned my golden slime, which let out a fierce howl despite standing only a fraction of a meter tall and looking like a harmless, dull yellow blob. Wang Meng quickly warned me that summoning contracted spirits in school corridors violated China's beast taming law. I put the slime away just as the attacker appeared, a boy from Beast Taming Class 3 with a white t-shirt and striking green hair named Zheng Yi. Sneering, Zheng Yi claimed the beating was the result of a fair monthly duel and demanded Wang Meng hand over his monthly beast taming beads, arrogantly declaring that everyone in Class 5 was trash. Restraining myself from acting impulsively on Class 3's turf, I helped Wang Meng back to our classroom. He explained that top-scoring students received valuable beast-taming pearls each month, which he had lost to Zheng Yi in 3 consecutive challenges. Our discussion was interrupted by Xia Bing, our petite class academic representative, who coldly criticized Wang Meng's losing streak before walking out. Word quickly spread through the classroom that Xia Bing had challenged all 24 members of Class 3 to a battle after school to avenge our class. Though surprised by her audacity, I learned she was a former Class 1 student who had been transferred to Class 5 under special circumstances. Excitement rippled through our unified class, and we all agreed to attend the match to cheer her on. During our next period, Fang Ke handed out test results along with glowing beast-taming pearls worth tens of thousands of yuan to our top 3 students: Xiabing, Wang Meng, and Li Zixuan. Fang Ke subtly acknowledged the upcoming challenge, encouraging Xiabing to be careful. When I boasted that our entire class would be watching, Fang Ke bluntly advised me to stay behind and study instead, brushing me off completely. I attempted to hit the books, but my lack of foundational knowledge made me fall asleep within minutes. I only woke when the final bell rang, signaling time for the battle. Carrying her blue backpack, Xiabing led the way to the school's beast taming hall, where nearly 100 students from all 5 classes gathered around a massive central arena. Zheng Yi stood waiting, mocking her decision to wager 3 beast-taming pearls worth 30,000 wen against his entire class. Cutting off his taunts, Xiabing summoned her contracted spirit, a massive 2-meter-long deep blue ice wolf covered in frost. The crowd gasped as they realized she was a level 5 beast tamer, an elite rank capable of placing in the grade's top 10. Though shaken, a level 4 tamer like Zheng Yi urged his classmates to wear her down through sheer numbers before summoning his own undead spirit, a terrifying skeleton brandishing a bone knife with glowing green flames in its eye sockets. The other members of Class 3 quickly summoned their respective spirits, unleashing violent monkeys, mud monsters, and blue-backed bugs into the arena. I looked down at my golden slime with a mix of envy and fondness as I rubbed its head, causing it to shake its soft body with delight. In the center ring, a fierce battle erupted. Because contracted spirits possessed primitive instincts, high-level beast tamers had to maintain constant mental control to coordinate their attacks. Xiaobing skillfully directed her ice wolf, utilizing its sharp claws and an area of effect frost aura that slowed nearby enemies and sent several flying across the platform. As Zheng Yi commanded his knife-wielding skeleton to join the assault, 3 system options suddenly surfaced before me. Option 1 offered a small obedience boost for cheering on Xiaobing, Option 2 offered spirit feed for yelling at them to stop, and Option 3 promised a massive surge of beast-taming power if I sneaked up and beat up Zheng Yi. Deciding instantly, I slipped through the crowd while everyone was glued to the match. I reached out from behind, covered Zheng Yi's mouth, and silently dragged him out of the room before any of his classmates noticed. I hauled him straight into the nearby restroom, slapped a heavy urea fertilizer bag over his head, and delivered a swift, merciless beating. Trapped in total darkness and with his skeleton preoccupied in the arena, Zheng Yi could only squirm in absolute bewilderment, having never encountered a tamer who fought with their fists. With its master's mental link severed, the skeleton's combat efficiency plummeted, allowing Xiaobing's ice wolf to make quick work of the remaining Class 3 spirits. As her victory was secured, a bruised Zheng Yi staggered out of the restroom with the fertilizer bag still on his head. When his classmates rushed over and blamed our class for the cowardly sneak attack, I immediately stepped forward with absolute righteousness. I loudly proclaimed that every member of Class 5 was an honorable person incapable of such despicable acts, swearing on my name to personally investigate the crime. While Zheng Yi glared at the crowd in suspicion, Wang Meng whispered to ask where I had gone, to which I quietly admitted I had been disposing of the fertilizer bag. Xiaobing claimed her 3-1 pearls from an embarrassed Zheng Yi, who kept eyeing me with deep suspicion despite my solemn promises of trustworthiness. Receiving a massive influx of beast-taming power from the system, I officially advanced to a level 2 beast tamer, boosting my slime's overall stats. As I was riding my shared bicycle home, Xiaobing caught up with me and offered me one of the beast-taming pearls, revealing she had spotted the fertilizer bag sticking out of my backpack earlier. Accepting the prize without hesitation, I proudly boasted that ambushing was my absolute favorite tactic before hopping back on my bicycle and speeding off into the evening. Returning home, I immediately began exploring the newly unlocked basic pharmacology feature on my system panel. A tree-shaped interface appeared before my eyes, branching out into various potions like power, fire, ice, and giantification remedies. Only the strength potion was illuminated, revealing that my mastery level allowed me to refine it using 30% fewer materials while granting extra proficiency bonuses. The main ingredient required was the dolly flower, a common dimensional herb sold in large city shops, but purchasing it legally required a pharmacist license. Realizing I needed an alternative route to make quick money and boost my spirit strength, I decided to seek out the local black market. I reached out on Super Message to my former desk mate, Zhang Dali, whose profile picture was a lone wolf on a grassland. After trading a few messages about my recent classroom antics and his lonely existence in the regular class, I asked if he knew where the black market was located and tried to borrow some money. When he dodged the loan request, suggesting I use credit features instead, I pointed out that credit loans actually had to be repaid, prompting him to instantly log off. Shortly after, Dali came over to my house in person, and despite my lack of funds, we decided to ride our bicycles out to the suburban black market together, hoping I could somehow trigger a system option to earn quick cash. Dali warned me to keep a low profile since the black market was a chaotic place, though his parents were black iron-level tamers. When we arrived at the entrance, a stern security guard blocked our path, refusing entry to anyone under a level 5 beast tamer rank. Dismissing Dali's attempt to use his student identity, the guard bluntly told him to scram. As Dali turned to leave, 3 new options surfaced in my vision. Forcing entry with my slime for a level boost, leaving quietly for temporary slime strength, or performing the ultimate provocation by whispering in the guard's ear that I was done for a skill upgrade. Asking Dali if he knew the surrounding terrain and telling him to prepare to sprint without looking back, I approached the guard under the guise of knowing a secret code word. Leaning close to his ear, I whispered the absurd phrase before turning on my heels and sprinting away at top speed. By the time the bewildered guard realized what had happened, Dali and I had already vanished into the distance. The daring stunt successfully upgraded my slime's giant growth skill, allowing it to expand to 4 times its normal size. Panting and catching our breath, we decided to call it a night and headed into a nearby ramen shop with an oddly unappetizing name to grab a hot dinner. The bizarre atmosphere of the ramen shop left both of us uncomfortable, and the owner's eagerness only made us more suspicious of the food. Just as I was searching for an excuse to leave without eating, I spotted a familiar figure walking past the window. I immediately dragged Dolly out of the restaurant, ignoring the owner's confused calls behind us as we headed back onto the crowded suburban street. I recognized the girl as Xu Xiaoyu, our grade's top student and an academic star who possessed an exceptional rank A contracted spirit. After we caught up to her, Dolly and I introduced ourselves, though she seemed somewhat puzzled by our sudden enthusiasm. Our interaction was interrupted by Wang Teng, the top student from 3rd middle school, who stepped forward with a condescending air to mark his territory. When Dolly openly mocked him and I joked about his self-important demeanor, Wang Teng looked thoroughly offended, though he refrained from starting a fight in public. After Wang Teng made a cryptic comment about forming a team for the upcoming city-level beast taming competition and took his leave, Xiaoyu kindly offered to guide us into the black market. Since she was already a 7th-level beast tamer, the security guards let us pass through the secondary entrance without any hassle. Once inside, she politely parted ways with us to attend to her own errands, leaving Dolly and me free to explore the vibrant, sprawling lanes of Chiching Street. The bustling market was filled with vendors shouting outlandish claims, selling supposed divine artifacts and catastrophe-level beast cores. Dolly was completely captivated by the chaotic energy and stopped at a stall to negotiate for a fake dragon core. To my absolute disbelief, he managed to bargain the owner down from 10,000 wen to a mere 10 wen, happily pocketing what was obviously a sphere made of dimensional mud. Leaving Dolly to enjoy his cheap souvenir, I continued weaving through the crowded stalls until I finally located the target shop I had been searching for. Approaching a stall displaying various exotic plants, I asked the shopkeeper for the price of a Dolly flower. When he demanded 5,000 yuan, 3 system choices appeared before me. Accusing him of selling a fake for beast-taming power, leaving quietly to increase my slime's size, or angrily pointing out that the flower was coated in wet paint for a wind potion. Stunned by the rampant scams in the black market, I was interrupted before I could act by a familiar voice behind me offering 10,000 wen. I turned around to see Zheng Yi from Class 3, his face still bruised, glaring at me with hatred while accusing me of the previous ambush. When I feigned ignorance, he spitefully tried to outbid me for the flower to deny me the core ingredient for strength potions. Determined to teach him a lesson, I began inflating the price with non-existent money, calmly raising the bid to 30,000 yuan. Confident I could expose the fake flower if forced to pay, I taunted Zheng Yi's courage until he spitefully offered 40,000 wen. Laughing off his bid, I congratulated him on his guts, mockingly offered a discount on paintbrushes for his new purchase, and walked away. The ecstatic shopkeeper quickly finalized the transaction and fled the market. While Dolly expressed anger over Zheng Yi's hostility, I chuckled at the thought of him wasting 40,000 yuan, though I wondered how he had identified me as his attacker so quickly. Dolly proudly revealed that he had boasted about my victory in our grades group chat right after I told him, prompting me to check my phone to find countless notifications. I scrolled through messages from classmates hailing me as a ruthless role model, beast tamers condemning physical violence, and a stern message from Fang Ke ordering me to his office the next morning. Suppressing my irritation at Dolly for ruining my stealth, I advised him on the value of keeping a low profile before we resumed our search. Finding no other stalls selling the scarce herb, we entered one of the official black market shops, only to be turned away by a steep 20,000 yuan price tag per flower. Noticing a recruitment flyer outside the store, I inquired about an assistant position for the upcoming summer break, hoping to earn cash and trigger more system options. Reading the posting, I found that the job offered a miserable monthly salary of 400 wen, which was halved for temporary summer workers. As I stood completely speechlessly at the extreme exploitation, the shopkeeper smiled and offered to let a handsome guy like me skip the interview and start immediately. Rejecting the shopkeeper's terrible job offer, Dolly and I immediately turned to leave. Suddenly, a series of explosive booms echoed through the black market as 2 contracted spirits clashed in the sky above. A magnificent, flaming crimson bird engaged a towering shadow creature. But despite its impressive aerial maneuvers, the firebird was gradually bound and suppressed by thick shadow tendrils. Recognizing the firebird as Xu Xiaoyu's grade A spirit, the surrounding crowd began fleeing the area, fully aware that a high-level rogue beast tamer was at work and that no local black iron tamers were nearby to intervene. Noticing that the chaos was spilling into our lane, Dolly and I exchanged a knowing look and sprinted toward the nearest exit at top speed, determined to protect our own skin. As I ran, 4 system options suddenly surfaced before my eyes: fighting the shadow monster directly, escaping for a skill boost, ambushing the tamer for an overall stat upgrade, or shouting to draw a crowd for a unique title. Choosing to intervene and defeat the villain directly, I halted my retreat and pulled another large urea bag from my backpack, leaving Dolly completely dumbfounded by my habit of carrying farm supplies everywhere. Guided by the system's location lock, I spotted a burly man with a buzz cut standing nearby, glowing with scarlet light as he mentally manipulated the shadow creature. Since low-level beast tamers possessed fragile physical bodies without internal defense, I summoned my golden slime ahead of time to crash into his shadow monster, instantly throwing him into total confusion. Slipping through the chaos like experienced stealth experts, Dolly and I sneaked up directly behind him. Before the man could react to our presence, I threw the urea bag over his head while Dolly and I unleashed a relentless barrage of kicks and punches. To divert any future retaliation from his allies, we intentionally yelled out the names of Zheng Yi and Wang Teng as if they were our partners in crime, confusing the nearby onlookers. Under our heavy beatings, the rogue tamer quickly lost consciousness, causing his shadow monster to vanish into thin air as its mental connection severed. As I recalled my slime back into its spirit space, Xiao Yu hurried over through the gathering crowd, completely stunned to see the threat neutralized. She stood in absolute disbelief as she watched us casually kicking the unconscious attacker on the ground, and I proudly informed her that we had personally taken care of the thug who dared to bother her. I stepped forward and removed the urea bag, exposing the bruised and battered face of Liu Dai to the morning air. Someone in the surrounding crowd immediately gasped in recognition, identifying him as a wanted criminal with a high danger rating. Checking my phone, I discovered that his capture carried a full 100,000 yuan reward. Members of the Spirit Suppression Bureau arrived shortly after to take charge of the criminal, and as the black market crowds dispersed, the three of us stepped back out onto the main street. After giving my phone number to claim the potential reward verification, Dolly dismissed the prize money entirely, claiming we should remain anonymous heroes who vanish without a trace after accomplishing our noble deeds. We struck heroic poses of absolute righteousness, completely ignoring the fact that we had bolted away in a panic moments earlier. Xiao Yu approached us with a serious expression, promising to repay the favor, though I brushed it aside and immediately pivoted to asking about summer job opportunities. When Dolly chimed in with equally absurd demands for a high-paying job where he could lie at home and count money, Xiao Yu offered a stiff laugh and mentioned that her family company had openings for security guards. Although I was hoping for something related to pharmacy, Dolly jumped at the security job with extreme enthusiasm, arguing that working as a guard was the peak of modern fashion. I couldn't help shaking my head at his obsession, though I mentioned my own interest in pharmacy and asked if her company dealt in medicinal liquids. Xiao Yu explained that their alchemy sector handled core products and required university-level expertise, but she welcomed us to apply for the security positions using her name. After exchanging WeChat contacts, we parted ways, and Dolly bickered with me about whether we possessed true protagonist qualities before we finally headed back to our residential area. Back in my room, a late-night system prompt flashed before my eyes, offering choices between a title for all-night cultivation or a small surge of beast-taming power for immediate sleep. Choosing to lie flat without hesitation, I pulled up my blanket and drifted off instantly, knowing a system user shouldn't have to overwork themselves. The next morning, stepping into the classroom brought an immediate wave of admiring gazes and jokes from my classmates, who praised my hand-to-hand combat style and jokingly asked for autographed urea bags to ward off evil spirits. My gloating was abruptly interrupted when a thin, sharp-eyed senior burst through the doorway, demanding to know who Chen Shu was. Wang Meng immediately stepped up to block his path, identifying him as Zheng Nan, an upperclassman who had come to settle scores for his younger brother after Zheng Nan lost 40,000 yuan on a fake flower. Zheng Nan stared directly at me, clearly having prepared for this confrontation ahead of time. Taking a few intimidating steps forward, he caused the surrounding students to shrink back, cowering under the familiar pressure upperclassmen held over younger grades. Smirking arrogantly, he reached out his right hand to slap my face. Without breaking eye contact, I instantly caught his wrist in midair, while 3 system choices materialized before my eyes. The options ranged from submitting to him for an appetite-boosting title, claiming to be Zhang Dali to increase my slime's size, or launching a direct counterattack against a level 6 beast tamer to claim an invincibility skill book. Choosing the counterattack without a second thought, I squeezed his wrist tightly with my left hand and delivered a brutal right-handed slap across his face. While Zheng Nan's head snapped back in sheer shock, I barked out whether he had a problem with my name, completely ignoring standard school hierarchy. Furious, Zheng Nan threatened to unleash his spirit, but my classmates immediately backed me up by threatening to call the Spirit Suppression Bureau to report the illegal public deployment. When he angrily demanded we move to the official beast taming hall, I scoffed at his foolishness, comparing his lack of brain power to a zombie's meal before forcing him to admit there was no issue with my name. By the time our homeroom teacher, Fang Kei, stepped into the classroom, I smoothly brushed off Zheng Nan's bruised face as a friendly physical sparring session, leaving my teacher to accept the excuse and send the humiliated senior packing. Following Fang Ke to his office, I maintained complete innocence, claiming Zhengnan's bruises were caused by him repeatedly bumping his head into my hand out of sheer emotional gratitude. Though Fang Ke saw right through my ridiculous lies, he chose not to punish me since Zhengnan had initiated the conflict. However, when he reprimanded me for physically attacking Zheng Yi in the previous battle, I proudly argued that I was simply teaching him a vital lesson about human vulnerability in dimensional portals. Leaving Fang Ke thoroughly speechlessly, I clasped my hands respectfully and took my leave. I returned to the classroom in a cheerful mood, whistling quietly as I reviewed my slime's growth. It had just unlocked a third combat skill called Super Armor, which granted brief immunity to same-level crowd control effects. Paired with its existing collision and gigantification skills, my F-rank golden slime was rapidly becoming a formidable asset. Under normal circumstances, low-potential spirits almost never learned skills independently, which was why I had avoided the beast-taming path initially. Now the system allowed me to effortlessly stack abilities, making my academic and combat future look remarkably bright. Later, Fang Ke entered the room to rally us for the upcoming final exams, hyping up the school's generous prizes. While top-ranking students stood to win valuable beast-taming pearls, the ultimate grand prize was a rare spirit enlightenment pill worth hundreds of thousands of yuan. However, the announcement failed to inspire our class. Xu Xiaoyu held a massive level lead at rank 7, making the top prize an impossible dream for our level 5 class monitor, Xiabing. Seeing everyone's indifference, Fang Ke tried encouraging us with hollow platitudes about pursuing distant hopes, but I immediately punctured the inspirational speech by pointing out the overwhelming mathematical odds of failure. Infuriated by my constant disruptions, Fang Ke warned that I would be kicked out of Class 5 if I failed the academic portion again. A system prompt instantly offered 3 choices: apologizing sincerely, making a dramatic dropout pledge, or asking if I was being recruited by Class 1. Prioritizing the tempting high school beast-taming history knowledge reward over simple power, I seriously asked if Class 1 was trying to draft me. Leaving the classroom in utter defeat, Fang Ke ran into my former homeroom teacher, Li Yuan, and immediately vented about my antics, though Li Yuan simply took it in stride as standard behavior for me. With the system's massive knowledge dump fully integrated into my mind, I spent the rest of the day easily dissecting complex exam questions. My sudden, intense focus on textbooks shocked my classmates, who openly speculated that I had lost my mind trying to escape last place. Even Xia Bing walked over with a concerned expression, offering to tutor me so I wouldn't drive myself crazy. As my classmates began teasing her, causing her to blush and clarify her official duties, 3 new choices materialized before me, offering a massive resistance buff for my slime if I proudly stood my ground and questioned her doubts about my intellect. Standing up abruptly, I stared solemnly at Petite Xiabing and asked how she dared to question my learning ability. The classroom instantly fell into complete silence, everyone dumbfounded by my utter lack of romantic tact. Completely unbothered by their astonished expressions, I sat back down, leaving Xiabing looking deeply embarrassed as she returned to her seat. Wang Meng sighed at my social density, though I knew Xiaobing was genuinely concerned about my academic future. As the final bell rang, I let out an absurdly long yawn that spread like a contagion through the classroom, prompting resentful glares from everyone around me. Walking toward the school gates, I calculated my academic standing, knowing that with a month left before finals, I needed to reach level 4 as a beast tamer to secure a spot in the grade's top 30. Just outside the school gate, a group of 7 or 8 upperclassmen led by Zheng Nan suddenly surrounded me. When a refined-looking senior in glasses tried to intimidate me, I mocked his outdated reliance on seniority, immediately pushing them past their breaking point. Just as they raised their fist to strike, I used my lungs like a built-in megaphone and screamed at the top of my voice that senior high students were committing murder, causing half the school to turn and look in utter panic. The terrified seniors tried to flee the scene, but Uncle Wang and several school security guards rushed over to intercept them. When asked what was happening, I dramatically accused Zheng Nan of plotting to murder me just to commemorate his lost youth, leaving the seniors choking with rage at my sheer absurdity. Grade Director Ma Yu arrived shortly after, and although he cut off my exaggerated grievances, he harshly scolded Zheng Nan and his group for causing trouble so close to the college entrance exams. Watching the dejected seniors get dragged away, I strolled home satisfied, spending the next week keeping a low profile, studying hard, and using occasional system rewards to boost my slime's size and strength. When the National College Entrance Examination Week finally arrived, our school served as an official testing site, granting the lower grades a glorious 3-day break. Excitement rippled through Class 5 as the final bell signaled the start of our mini-vacation. When I asked Wang Meng about his plans, he admitted his family was sending him to a beast-taming training ground for the duration of the break, while several other classmates reluctantly confessed they were enrolled in intense tutoring courses to prepare for our upcoming finals. Wang Meng and the other top students continued discussing their holiday plans, resignations to burying themselves in study materials for the 3-day break. Many planned to visit local beast-taming dojos, popular educational institutions with high spiritual energy concentrations where students flock to boost their beast-taming levels. When Wang Meng asked about my plans, I casually mentioned that I intended to use the time to interview for a summer job at Xu Xiaoyu's family business. Wang Meng praised my relaxed attitude, privately assuming that as the bottom student in both academics and beast-taming, I had simply given up on trying. Unbothered by his assumptions, I stretched and yawned, fully content with my Zen-like approach now that I possessed a cheat system. My relaxed mood was interrupted when my former homeroom teacher Li Yuan suddenly appeared at the classroom door with a dark expression. After a quick cuff on my head, he solemnly informed me that agents from the Spirit Suppression Bureau were waiting in his office specifically to speak with me. We hurried over to find Zhang Deli already chatting animatedly with an agent named Wang Qian, boasting about our heroic bloody showdown against a terrifying wanted criminal. Wang Qian, who had known Dali since childhood, quickly cut through his exaggerated storytelling and turned to greet me, praising me as the true leader of the operation. As Wang Qian spoke, a system window popped up with 3 options: answering humbly, acting arrogantly, or putting my hands behind my back to confidently agree with his sharp judgment for a 10% boost to all my slime's attributes. Choosing the third option, I turned toward the window with my hands clasped behind my back and declared that his judgment was spot on. I launched into an impassioned, dramatic retelling of how I shoved a urea bag over the criminal's head to deliver swift justice, prompting Wang Qian to interrupt me with a bewildered expression, genuinely concerned for our sanity. When Wang Qian asked how I had managed to locate the hidden criminal in the crowd, I sincerely claimed that the man simply looked evil, concealing the fact that the system had highlighted him in glowing red light. Stunned by our reckless reliance on sheer luck and face-covering bags, Wang Qian shook his head and handed over the 100,000 yuan reward provided by the Bureau. He explained that our fortunate blind guest had saved Xu Xiaoyu, the daughter of 6666 Pharmaceutical Company, before taking his leave to manage security for the upcoming college entrance exams. While Dali looked disappointed that the reward didn't include citywide news coverage, he tried begging Teacher Li for a school-wide announcement instead. Still processing the absurd reality that 2 low-level students had subdued a dangerous level 9 criminal, Teacher Li quickly redirected his disbelief into authority. Since he couldn't easily discipline me, he asserted his power over Dali by ordering him to copy high school history knowledge 10 times over the 3-day break, leaving my friend completely dejected as our long-awaited vacation began. Teacher Li sternly warned us that while we were lucky this time, attempting heroic deeds without sufficient strength would only end in tragedy. Brushing off Dali's hopes for a school-wide announcement, he sent us home. On our walk back, I casually informed Dali that while he was technically entitled to half of the reward money, I knew he wouldn't take it, so I would gladly keep it all. Unbothered, we coordinated our plans to visit 666 Pharmaceutical Company the next morning, where I hoped to land an alchemy role, and Dali remained inexplicably passionate about working as a security guard to protect local peace. Our conversation was interrupted by a black Mercedes-Benz pulling up beside us, driven by Dali's father, Zhang Feng. A formidable black iron-level beast tamer, Uncle Zhang possessed immense physical power, a second contracted spirit, and the ability to explore dangerous interdimensional portals. As we piled into the car, Uncle Zhang teased Dali about his complete lack of beast-taming talent, despite coming from a lineage of strong tamers. Dali took the jokes in stride, admitting he was content with coasting through life as long as his family and friends protected him. When I eagerly asked Uncle Zhang about what it was like inside the alternate dimensions, his expression turned wistful, describing them as places of unimaginable wealth and lethal danger, before warning me against entering them without a strong team. After sharing a lively dinner with Dali and his father at my house, I retreated to my room and pulled out my phone to contact Xu Xiaoyu about our upcoming job interviews. Before I could message her, a string of lengthy voice notes popped up from Fang Xi, our older neighbor and a legendary genius who had awakened an S-rank spirit before heading off to Huaxia University. Wanting to avoid listening to long audio messages, I blindly replied that I completely understood her feelings, only for her to reveal she had sent a blank audio recording as a trick. Quickly talking my way out of a beating, I readily accepted her offer to handle any school bullies during her summer break, immediately drafting a hit list featuring Zheng Yi, Zheng Nan, and Wang Teng for my powerful ally to settle upon her return. I chatted with Fang Xi for a few minutes before letting her go, knowing that competition at Huaxia Academy left her with almost no free time. Turning my attention to Xu Xiaoyu, I messaged her to ask for inside information regarding the pharmacist position at her family's company. When she finally replied, she dismissed the idea of a high school student becoming an actual pharmacist, explaining that my best hope was securing an assistant role based on solid materials science knowledge. I tried convincing her that my proficiency in brewing great strength potions was already at a master level, but she remained skeptical and gently turned off her phone to focus on her cultivation. At 1 a.m, just as I prepared to sleep, a system option presented me with a choice between pulling an all-nighter for a cultivation title or falling asleep immediately for a direct boost in beast-taming power. Choosing sleep without hesitation, I absorbed the free power and drifted off. I opened my eyes the next morning to bright sunlight, panicking when my phone showed 12:07, thinking I had somehow slept past midnight. Realizing it was actually noon, I rushed through my morning routine and headed to Zhang Dali's house. Getting no response at his door, I shouted fire, accidentally alarming the entire neighborhood before a groggy Dali finally answered. He explained that his father's spirit skill, Nightfall, had blocked out all sunlight to improve sleep quality. Once Dali got ready, we took a taxi to the high-tech zone for our interviews at 666 Pharmaceutical Company. We stopped at a small restaurant first, where Dali got into a bizarre argument with the waiter over a dish absurdly named stir-fried tomatoes with tomatoes, which turned out to be just plain tomatoes. Shaking off the ridiculous interaction, we walked up to the impressive office building of 6666 Pharmaceutical. The front security guard welcomed us warmly, mentioning that Xu Xiaoyu had already pulled string for us. While Dali was happily assigned to the security team, a guard named Xiao Wang escorted me up the elevator to the 10th floor, chuckling in disbelief when I casually told him I wasn't there to be an assistant, but to refine actual medicine. A cold voice cut through the air as a tall, elegant woman with long, flowing hair stepped out, naturally radiating an air of cold arrogance. Scared off by her presence, security guard Xiao Wang whispered a quick excuse and hurriedly deserted the floor. When I calmly mentioned that I wanted to try out for the role, she dismissed me without a second glance, muttering about Xu Xiaoyu bringing random trouble to the company. When I shouted that my interview had not even started, she coldly declared it over and walked back into her laboratory. A system window immediately popped up, offering choices between accepting defeat, kicking her from behind to ruin her composure, or sneaking into the lab to seek an opportunity. While the second option was deeply tempting, reason prevailed, and I chose to sneak inside instead. Grabbing a spare white lab coat and mask near the entrance, I put them on and swaggered through the facility. I casually strolled into an active lab where 3 workers were refining fire potions, nodding with my hands behind my back like a visiting executive. They respectfully bade me farewell as I left, completely fooled by my confident demeanor. Moving deeper into the facility, I stumbled upon an empty laboratory stocked with raw materials for strength potions, including 5 precious Dali flowers. Driven by curiosity, I triggered the system's crafting feature, and my body seamlessly went into an automated machine-like state. My hands executed flawless, precise movements to combine the ingredients, effortlessly brewing standard-grade potions. The system notified me that brewing 10 batches would unlock medium-grade recipes, and thanks to my master-level efficiency and 30% material savings, I ended up with 13 pristine bottles instead of the usual 5. Realizing that producing 13 bottles from a single batch of materials would draw far too much suspicion, I quickly stashed 7 bottles into my system space just as footsteps approached the door. The cold woman from earlier entered alongside another pharmacist, instantly recognizing me despite my mask. Before she could vent her anger over my trespassing, her colleague noticed the 6 glowing bottles left on the counter and confirmed their high purity. Stunned by the realization that a high school student had successfully crafted 6 flawless potions without a single failure, the woman swallowed her pride and solemnly offered me the position of departmental pharmacist, though I couldn't help but mock her earlier condescension with a playful smirk. Xu Qingsu appeared to be just a few years older than me, likely an assistant rather than a certified pharmacist. Recognizing her family tie to Xu Xiaoyu, I knew that even she had to take a skilled alchemist seriously, as pharmacists were indispensable assets to any pharmaceutical company. Standing my ground, I demanded an apology for her initial condescension, casually mentioning that I could also attempt medium and high-grade recipes once provided with the proper materials. The accompanying pharmacist gasped in shock at my claim, prompting Xu Qingshui to drop her pride and bow her head in a formal, sincere apology. Accepting her apology without pushing too far, I explained that I was only looking for a temporary summer position. She quickly drafted a contract offering 1,000 wen daily wage, a pharmacist-level salary, under the role of assistant, as I lacked official certification. The terms required a baseline output of 5 bottles per day, with the company keeping 80% of the standard profits. More importantly, the contract permitted pharmacists to keep any surplus produced beyond the quota, meaning my system's ability to yield 13 bottles per batch would allow me to quietly stash away tens of thousands of yuan in extra profit every single run. Signing the agreement immediately, I was assigned a private potion room reserved for independent formulators. Using the system cheat, I effortlessly refined 20 bottles for the company in a single afternoon, while secretly hoarding 40 bottles in my system inventory, far surpassing standard human output. My brewing marathon was only halted when my assigned assistant, Xiao Mao, hesitantly informed me that the facility had completely run out of raw strength flowers. Shortly after, Xu Xiaoyu entered the room alongside her uncle, Zhou Cheng, a company executive. Zhou Cheng warmly greeted me and expressed sheer amazement at my ability to successfully brew 4 full doses of strength potions in a single afternoon. He explained that due to supply constraints from interdimensional sources, the company could only allocate 3 sets of strength flowers to me daily, but he immediately doubled my daily wage to 2,000 yuan with daily payouts. Delighted by the massive return on his investment, Zhou Cheng enthusiastically asked if I would consider signing a long-term contract as a professional pharmacist, just as another set of system options materialized before my eyes. Faced with a system choice, I was offered either to instantly unlock all pharmacology illustrations at the cost of losing my contracted spirit, or to politely decline the company's offer and gain a boost in spirit power. I chose the second option without hesitation. Becoming the world's top alchemist sounded appealing, but apothecaries ultimately existed to serve beast tamers. Turning down Zhou Cheng's long-term employment offer with a declaration that my true journey lay among the stars, I left him chuckling at my ambition as he urged Xiaoyu to stay in touch with me. Walking out of the building with Xiaoyu, she stared at me in genuine disbelief, wondering how someone my age could possess such advanced brewing skills. I launched into an elaborate, ridiculous tale about encountering a giant golden dragon in a thunderstorm that sold me a sacred alchemy book for 10 yuan. Before she could process the absurdity of the story, Dali approached in his new security uniform and solemnly chimed in, claiming he was that very dragon and demanding his 10 yuan back. Exasperated by our combined madness, Xiaoyu patted her forehead and fled, leaving Dali and me to celebrate my new status as pharmacist Chen over a massive dinner. Upon returning home, I pulled the 100,000 yuan reward from my backpack to show my parents. After I explained how we captured the wanted criminal, my father sternly warned me never to take such dangerous risks again and refused to take the money, insisting I use it all for my beast-taming cultivation instead. Surprised by his nonchalance toward such a large sum, I couldn't help but suspect a hidden family secret, especially considering how a black iron-level tamer like Uncle Jiang always treated my father with deep respect. Setting the mystery aside, I retreated to my room and unpacked the 40 bottles of strength potions I had secretly stashed in my system inventory, representing 200,000 yuan in value. Summoning my golden slime, I watched in satisfaction as the affectionate, docile creature happily chugged down every single bottle. With each potion permanently increasing its physical strength by 0.5%, the massive 40-bottle feast granted my slime a permanent 20% strength boost, giving me a massive pay-to-win advantage for future battles. Having maxed out my golden slime's physical power, the creature developed a natural drug resistance that prevented low-grade potions from boosting its strength any further. To keep increasing its stats, I needed to upgrade to medium-grade strength potions, a process that would normally cost ordinary families hundreds of thousands of yuan just to cover basic stat buffs. Over the 3-day holiday, I established a steady routine of commuting between home and the company, completing my 3 daily potion refinements in under an hour and spending the rest of my time stockpiling surplus potions. By the end of the break, I had accumulated 48 extra bottles in my system inventory and unlocked the medium-grade recipe. Eager to source ingredients for my new recipe, I hailed a taxi to Qiqing Street and relied on a random stranger at the black market entrance to hustle my way inside without Xu Xiaoyu's assistance. Wandering into a shaded shop, I was dismayed to find the dealer offering a mere 3,000 yuan per bottle for my stock, though I ultimately sold all 48 bottles to fund the purchase of 4 sets of raw materials for medium-grade potions. Although the shady dealer immediately put my potions back on the shelf for 5,000 yuan, my system's ability to turn those 4 raw sets into 26 medium-grade bottles guaranteed I would still double my profit. Needing a quiet spot to craft without drawing attention, I ducked into a public restroom stall and laid out my raw ingredients on the floor. Selecting the medium-grade refinement option, the system took over my body once again, turning me into a human machine as I spent 20 minutes precisely mixing ingredients to yield my first 13 medium-grade bottles. While I immediately started on the second batch, a desperate young man outside was frantically knocking on the stall doors. Unwilling to wait any longer, he climbed over the top of the partition, only to freeze in sheer horror as he stared at me calmly concocting pharmaceutical liquids on a toilet floor. The onlooker's worldview completely shattered, left wondering if pharmacists had gone mad or if the facility doubled as a collection site for raw materials. His dramatic shouts drew a curious crowd to the doorway, and despite many suspecting mental illness, several people climbed up to peek over the stall partitions. This deeply unnerved the other two occupants, who kept seeing random heads pop up with eerie stares. Peerers marveled at my steady, unshakable hands, though my back view left them wildly guessing as I scooped up ingredients from the floor. Unbothered by the growing commotion, I spent the remaining 20 minutes finishing the batch, proudly securing 26 bottles of medium-grade strength potions. Opening the door to face a dozen staring onlookers, I was greeted with baffled chatter about a master public restroom pharmacist. Just then, a system option appeared, tempting me to flee, announce my name for fame, or give a wicked smile and drink a sip of my own potion for a massive boost in beast-taming power. Choosing the third option, I pulled out a container of pale yellow liquid and offered it to the crowd, causing everyone to hastily back away in disgust. Giving a mischievous grin, I uncapped the container, raised my neck, and chugged a mouthful of the sweet power potion right before their horrified eyes. Leaves them completely chilled to the bone, I calmly put the bottle away and strode out like an absolute lunatic. The onlookers immediately snapped photos of my back view, flooding social media with viral posts about a rogue master pharmacist crafting and drinking mysterious liquids in public toilets. Unaware of my online fame, I exited the black market, feeling the massive influx of system power instantly elevate me to a level 3 beast tamer. Riding my bicycle home in high spirits, I passed the same dimly lit alley as before, only to be ambushed by a sinister half-meter-long black snake flying toward me at lightning speed. Hiding behind a nearby tree was Wu Li, a level 4 tamer hired by Zheng Yi to send me to the hospital. But before his venomous snake could reach me, a sudden blinding flash of yellow light erupted, causing the ground to tremble as my massive golden slime materialized out of thin air and slammed down like a giant mound. Wu Li was completely stunned. Although he knew my contracted spirit was a golden slime, no one had ever seen it in combat, and rumor had it that the creature possessed zero fighting capability. Yet, there his level 4 venomous snake lay, eyes wide and blood gushing from its mouth, its internal organs completely crushed beneath the weight of a 2-meter-tall 500-kilogram sphere. Between system enhancements and power potions, my slime's physical power was overwhelming, and combined with its giant transformation skill, standard level 4 spirits were simply no match for it. Furious at being ambushed, I commanded the slime to squeeze the snake flat, leaving the creature hissing in agony. Sensing that his contracted spirit was on the brink of death, Wu Li hastily recalled the snake and turned to flee in terror. Catching his movement immediately, I ordered the slime to use its charge skill, sending it darting forward like an arrow. Wu Li barely felt the gust of wind behind him before the massive yellow mass slammed into him, sending him flying meters into the air and crashing violently against a tree. Recalling the slime to avoid turning a self-defense incident into a fatal crime, I bent over the groaning Wu Li. Taking a wild guess, I bluffed that Zheng Nan had sent him, and his startled reaction instantly confirmed my suspicion. Brushing off the pathetic sight, I hopped back on my bicycle and rode home, leaving Wu Li to stagger off toward a hospital stay. Back in my room, I happily kneaded the slime, thoroughly satisfied with its performance, and eagerly waiting for it to reach level 4 so I could feed it my 26 bottles of medium-grade potions. The next morning, I arrived at school to find the entire student body staring at me with bizarre expressions. The moment I entered the classroom, Wang Meng held up his phone, showing me a viral photo of someone in a bright yellow alpaca shirt squatting in a public toilet stall. I immediately recognized my own outfit, realizing to my horror that I had become famous overnight as the public toilet pharmacist of Nanjiang City. Before I could unsuccessfully attempt to clarify that I was brewing actual medicine rather than fertilizer, Teacher Fang Ke walked in with a strange look on his face. He quickly quieted the class and announced crucial insider news. To combat declining city rankings, the school was forming the senior special training class early, filling its 20 spots based strictly on our upcoming final exam results. While Xiaobing and Wang Meng burned with competitive fire, my own enthusiastic pledge to do my best was met by Fang Ke, gently reassuring me that trying hard was all that truly mattered.